Number 1.
Angela Renee Ambrocio, age 19, vanished from Lakeland, Florida on November 19, 1986. According to Angela's husband, Avelino Abel Ambrosio, he dropped Angela off at Church's Fried Chicken on Memorial Boulevard following an argument. The two were separated at the time, and Avelino had picked Angela up to take her to his home, so she could visit their children. Once in the car, however, they went to a park to talk about reconciling. Then they argued. Avelino said that Angela was upset because he refused to drive her to Tampa, Florida. Abel claimed that Angela exited the car at Church's Chicken between 3:34 p.m. Angela left behind 2 young children, and it is not believed that she left voluntarily. The couple was having marital problems, but Angela hadn't given any indication that she planned to leave. Angela worked at McDonald's at the time of her disappearance, and was living with friends. Avelino filed for divorce in 1987, which was after her disappearance. He was arrested in 2005 on a charge of domestic violence by strangulation. Note: some accounts state that Avelino would not allow Angela to see the children, unless they could first work out their marital problems. I don't know if that was an assumption on the part of law enforcement or of Angela's relatives, or if this was actually stated by Avelino. The only way anyone could know this would be if Avelino stated it occurred. Well, I wouldn't be surprised by an estranged husband using the children as leverage to get what he wants. It doesn't strike me as something one would be likely to tell police in a missing persons investigation.
Number 2.
Star Joy Dotson, age 21, vanished from Hollidaysburg, Pennsylvania on July 10, 1976. Some sites state she was last seen in Ebensburg. She lived in Gallitzin. The exact circumstances of Star's disappearance are not clear. She was last seen at Legion Memorial Park with her boyfriend, Daniel Dupnock, a then 25-year-old truck driver for Universal Minerals. Daniel was found deceased on July 27 in his car. His death was ruled a suicide by carbon monoxide poisoning. He was found in a wooded area off of Old Portage Road near Crescent Township. Articles of women's clothing were found in his car, but it's unknown whether the items belonged to Star. Daniel had previously suffered injuries as the result of a car accident, which had claimed the life of a friend who had also been in the car. I'm a bit perplexed by Daniel's death being ruled a suicide. The car was in a wooded area, not in a garage. Carbon monoxide wouldn't have gotten inside the car, or have been trapped in the air surrounding the vehicle. It's possible that a hose could have been run from the tailpipe through a window into the car, but a wide hose would have been needed to fit over the tailpipe. A hose of that size would most likely cause a large enough opening in the window that most of the carbon monoxide would escape to the outside. I'm wondering if they can be sure it was a suicide. Could something have happened previously, and someone else drove Daniel and the car to that location? Could the same prior event have claimed Star's life as well? We know he was found nearly 3 weeks after her disappearance, and that his find date grave lists his death date as July 27, but is that date based on when he was found? Did he actually pass away closer to the time that Star vanished, and he was found later? Did anyone have contact with Daniel in the time between Star's disappearance and Daniel's death? Did he say anything about Star? Was she with him? Was it Daniel himself who stated that he last saw her at a park? Very little is known about Star. She was one of 8 children. Her father had died in 1961. It's unknown whether her relationship with Daniel was troubled, or if she had a history of dropping out of sight. I really think knowing more about Star and Daniel's relationship, as well as more about Daniel's activity in July 1976, would be helpful in figuring out what may have happened. The fact that Daniel's death was ruled a suicide could easily lead us to think he was guilt-ridden or afraid of justice after killing his girlfriend, but is it possible that his death wasn't a suicide, and he was a victim as well? With the lack of information that's been reported, I do think it's possible. I've never seen any reports that Daniel was ever officially named a suspect in her disappearance.
Number 3.
Marianne Wislowski, age 13, was last seen in Glens Falls, New York on August 8, 1971. Marianne had gone to Haviland Cove Beach to swim with her brother and a female friend earlier in the day. While there, Marianne and her brother reportedly witnessed their mother's boyfriend, Chuck, at the beach with another woman. The children returned home and told their mother what they had seen. Their mother sent Marianne back to the beach to tell Chuck to come home. She was last seen near the intersection of Hudson Avenue and Spring St. She was never seen again. Following her disappearance, her mother found a note that read, "I'm leaving. I might miss you." She'd also written a letter to her sister, stating that she hated Glens Falls and couldn't wait for summer to start. The letter was never mailed and was found at her home. It's unclear when the letter was written, but her family has guessed it was a few months prior to her disappearance. The fact that she'd mentioned waiting for summer to start led them to believe it was written earlier in 1971, since they'd only moved to Glens Falls in 1970 following their parents' divorce. Other reports state that Marianne had left the beach to go to a nearby sandwich shop and never made it there. I'm really not quite sure which is correct, as each account was given to the media by a different one of her brothers, both of whom were under 10 years old at the time she disappeared. The police looked at Kenneth Yarder as a possible person of interest in her disappearance, but could never find anything to link him to it. Yarder was charged with the murder of 16-year-old Susan Zanta in 1974, a crime he confessed to, but he later claimed the confession was coerced. Zanta was abducted and killed while vacationing in Argyle, New York. He is now in a Florida prison serving time for the 1991 abduction and rape of 2 teenage girls. The biggest reason Yarder was looked at was that he worked at a restaurant very near the sandwich shop that Marianne was supposed to be headed to. He also told an off-duty police officer in Florida that he'd gotten away with the murder in New York. I'd guess that statement was in reference to Zanta, and not Marianne, since the charges in Zanta's case were dropped. Some of Marianne's siblings believe she left of her own accord and is still alive. While both brothers point to the note saying she was leaving as a reason for this belief, one brother also added that there were a lot of problems at home, and that moving spontaneously is a familial trait. I hope she can be found safe.
Number 4.
Michele Reidenbach, age 16, was last seen in Zelienople, Pennsylvania on October 6, 1981. Michele was a senior at Seneca Valley High School. After school on the day of her disappearance, Michele talked to her friend, Beth Staub, on the bus. Michele helped Beth prepare for yearbook photos, fixing Beth's hair and loaning her a couple pieces of jewelry. The two got off the bus together, and Michele went to her after-school job at Mel Denn's appliance store, where she created store flyers and stuffed envelopes. According to Michele's boss, she told him she was going to a nearby pharmacy to buy some cold medicine, as she wasn't feeling well. She left on foot, leaving her backpack and cigarettes behind. The clerk at the pharmacy confirmed that Michele did come in and purchase the medicine, and then left the store. Michele's boss stated he saw her at about 4:30 p.m. in the parking lot of the Super Duper grocery store, which was adjacent to Mel Denn's. He witnessed her speaking to someone in a red car. Michele never returned to work. Although this was unusual, her boss initially was not overly concerned, as he knew she wasn't feeling well, and thought she might have gone home. When Michele's mother stopped by to see her soon after, and found her not there, she was confused, but continued with her errands. It was at the end of Michele's shift, when her brother arrived to pick her up, that alarm bells started going off. Michele was not known to have any personal problems at the time of her disappearance. Her sister had suffered a stroke, but was recovering by the time Michele vanished. Michele had been devoted to caring for her sister, and it's not believed that she would have left on her own. Michele was the youngest of several siblings, who deserve answers as to their sister's fate.
Number 5.
William Alfred Higgins, age 35, vanished from McKeesport, Pennsylvania on April 5, 1969. He'd gone to work at the Christie Park munitions plant on Walnut Avenue, as usual, on the morning of April 5. He never returned to his home on 6th Street. He left behind a wife and 6 children. He never picked up his paycheck from the plant, and his social security number has not been used since he vanished. I'm not sure if it's been confirmed that he arrived at work that day. William's vehicle, a 1955 pickup truck, disappeared with him and has never been located. Although William's family reported him missing in 1969, and police classified his disappearance as suspicious, I can't find any media coverage. The original police report was lost in 1980 as a result of a flood. William's wife, Dolores, placed ads in the paper calling for William to come forward because she wanted a divorce, but there was no response. William married Dolores in 1955 in response to an unplanned pregnancy. By 1969, however, the marriage was troubled, and both William and Dolores were involved in extramarital affairs. William was said to have cut down on his time at the bars and with other women in the weeks approaching his disappearance. He'd been spending more time at home fixing up the house. Dolores, though, who was 32, was involved with a neighbor who was half her age, and had a history of getting into trouble. Following William's disappearance, the neighbor moved into the home with Dolores and the 6 children. It just so happened that Dolores's brother owned that home, and upon learning that she had allowed another man to move in, he promptly booted them out, and cut all ties with her. The residence burned down soon after. In the ensuing years, Dolores has told varying stories, all of which implied that William left of his own accord. Among the statements was one where he was living on a barge on Florida, and that he had left to avoid paying child support. William's family had no contact with his and Dolores's children after he disappeared, until they recently reconnected online. There are 2 rivers he would have crossed in order to get to and from work, so his family has considered the possibility of an accident, but believe foul play is more likely. His children seek answers as to his fate.